Well, one topic I want to jump in with you, Jeff, is the topic of purpose. I know with Wanderlust, you kind of put it down, or one of the goal of it is to find your sense of your true north, or connecting with your inner self. And, a lot of these words, and to many people listening, they could be cliched. What is your true self? What is your true north? The sense of, why are we going north anyway? But just, I think the overriding theme, sorry, not so good.
Good man, Steve.
Not so good at the THs. But the underlying concept is that sense of purpose. And I wonder if you could talk about the topic of purpose and finding purpose. And
certainly in your life, because you've had, you're quote unquote successful. Like, you've had businesses that have been great successes. You're married, you've got a number of kids. Like, you've got, from the outside you look in, you're into Buddhism, you're into spirituality, you've got lots of curiosities. Like, what's your purpose and what is your take on it? And how is that relevant to people listening?
So there's a number of different levels of meaning or purpose. And, Viktor Frankl is a hero of mine and just absolutely brilliant author. And he claims that you find your meaning or your purpose in 3 different places. So you find it in your relationships, in your work or creativity, and you can also find your meaning or purpose in your suffering. And you can ask yourself, am I worthy of my suffering? And that was a phrase that he borrowed from Dostoevsky when he wrote Man's Search for Meaning. So I think about that. And I think about all of those 3 categories. And I give them primacy. So with my relationships, okay, how present am I day to day, moment to moment in my relationships? Am I thrusting my needs or the requirements of my ego onto someone else such that I can feel good, so I can satisfy this symbol that I have for myself that I call my ego? Or am I in a place of giving, of actually investing in someone else's thriving and well-being? So I often measure that when I'm trying to be aware, with my children or with my friends or with my family, like, how present am I in this moment for somebody else? And that is a good metric for meaning, because the more present you are for the people within your ecosystem that you love, the more you will register high on the purpose meter. And this will always come back to you, which is always the amazing discovery that you have over and over again, is that, compassion and presence for somebody else is actually a gift that you give yourself. And it seems anachronistic almost, but so relationships is a huge one. And then your work. And I really think about this as creativity and curiosity. What is your state of being when you wake up every morning? Are you absolutely excited to delve into the day? Do you have myriad things? I mean, for me, there's so many things that I am excited about that it almost does create a little bit of anxiety. I actually have to watch myself there because I'm so interested and captivated by my work. And I think the metric for this is in your perception of time. So are there chunks within the day, what I call ultradian cycles, these 90-minute cycles, that are sort of part of the overall circadian cycle, where they seem just to disappear into thin air because you're so engrossed in the excavation of a certain topic or curiosity or creative work or endeavor. So again, that also comes down to presence. And so when I think about playing the piano or learning something or reading something or whatever activity I happen to be engrossed in, am I 100% there in my work? And so I think, those work and relationships takes you a really long way into meaning and purpose. And then there is this very thorny, complicated topic of suffering. And, there's this trope in the spiritual circles or wellness circles. I'm sure you have come across it. I mean, everyone has that, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. On some level, yeah, a lot of our anxiety, a lot of our suffering could be categorized as phantoms of our own projection. We have trauma in our life where we focus on that trauma of the past and project it into the future and create what I call negative anticipated memory. So we're actually creating memories that are negative that haven't even come to pass yet. And so many of us live that way. So that is true. But, that aphorism that, pain is inevitable and suffering is optional, it really, it almost demeans the work that one has to go through to actually expiate themselves of trauma. You don't confront your phantoms, with just a green juice or a magic pill. Oftentimes, managing your suffering and your trauma is really hard wrought work, and really requires a dedication to a tremendous amount of inner work. And then what is on the other side of that? And this is what we have to ask ourselves. So there's a wonderful author, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, writes a lot about grief, and dealing with pain and suffering. And this is not something that we're ever taught, at least in my school growing up. It was not part of the curriculum. Like, how do you manage grief? 5 steps. So this is something that we all, often have to learn on our own. And, there's this meandering line, to managing suffering in one's life. It's denial and anger and bargaining and depression, and then finally some kind of acceptance, hopefully. And then what comes on the other side of that? And can you find meaning on the other side of your grief? We all have grief. We all are managing this basic human condition, which the Buddha called dukkha, and which is unsatisfactoriness, which is suffering, which is frustration. And the question then comes, what will we make of that? And with the limited free will and agency that we have, how can we find meaning within that default human condition? So, that I believe is the hardest and most arduous place to find meaning and purpose in one's life. But in some ways, I think the most fulfilling. So
what an answer. Relationships. So we got like finding meaning in relationships, being more present in relationships, being more present in work and creativity, and somehow finding meaning in suffering. And when you're talking about the third one of finding meaning in suffering, it made me think of like when I feel crap, like some days when I feel crap, I'm kind of aware that there might be a frustration or an anxiousness within me. And I'm also aware that and I'm kind of excited that when I can actually just be with it, for when it passes, because when it does pass, there is like the state of presence afterwards is so rewarding. When it and I think of it, sometimes I feel pressured about work or I feel something or whatnot. And then then throughout the day it passes, and then I'm left with this peace. And it kind of I think that's part of it. It's realizing that suffering is part of it. And then when a bit like the clouds part and the sun comes out.